Defense. The law of self-defense allows the defendant to threaten or intentionally use force against another only if he believed that there was an actual or imminent unlawful interference with his own person, and he believed that the amount of force which he used or threatened to use was necessary to prevent or terminate the interference, and his beliefs were reasonable. The defendant may intentionally use force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm only if he reasonably believed that the force used was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to his own person. A belief may be reasonable even though it is mistaken. In determining whether the defendant's beliefs were reasonable, the standard is what a person of ordinary intelligence
What's up, buddy?
would have believed in the defendant's position under the circumstances that existed at the time of the alleged offenses. The reasonableness of the defendant's beliefs must be determined from the standpoint of the defendant at the time of the defendant's acts and not from the standpoint of the jury now. There is no duty to retreat. However, in determining whether the defendant reasonably believed the amount of force used was necessary to prevent or terminate the interference, you may consider whether the defendant had the opportunity to retreat with safety, whether such retreat was feasible, and whether the defendant knew of the opportunity to retreat. You should also consider whether the defendant provoked the attack. A person who engages in unlawful conduct of a type likely to provoke others to attack, and who does provoke an attack, is not allowed to use or threaten force in self-defense against that attack. However, if the attack which follows causes the person reasonably to believe that he is in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, he may lawfully act in self-defense, but the person may not use or threaten force intended or likely to cause death unless he reasonably believes that he has exhausted every other reasonable means to escape from.
That's where they're going to try and get him right there.
Avoid death or great bodily harm.
Dude, the stocks. Oof. For Red Day.
4 and 5
Look.
require intent to kill as part of the elements. Intent to kill means that the defendant had the mental purpose to take the life of another human being, or was aware that his conduct was practically certain to cause the death of another human being. While the law requires that the defendant have acted with the intent to kill,
I think they might get him
does not
on
require that the intent to kill have
Rosenbaum
existed
because
for
they're going to
any
say that he could
particular
have got
length of time
away.
before the act was
Someone's
committed.
going to try to make that argument.
The act need not have been brooded over,
The other
considered,
two,
or reflected upon for a
not
week,
so much.
a day, an hour, or even for a minute. There need not have been any appreciable time between the formation of the intent and the act. The intent to kill may be formed at any time before the act, including the instant before
Oh,
the
wow.
act, and must continue to have existed at the time of the act. You cannot look into a person's mind to determine intent. Intent to kill must
Interesting.
be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all the facts and circumstances in this case which bear upon intent.
Interesting.
Intent should not be confused with motive. Proof of motive is necessary.
Well,
Excuse me. While proof of motive is
I don't-
necessary to a conviction,
we talked about this
proof of
because
motive is not. Motive refers to a person's reason for doing
they have to have 100%, like all jurors have to agree in a capital punishment case, but not in a non-capital punishment case.
defendant. The state is not required to prove motive on the part of the defendant in order to convict. Evidence of motive does not by itself establish guilt. You should give it the weight you believe it deserves under all of the circumstances.
I don't know if I missed the closing arguments.
The first count of the information
I had an
charges
appointment
on
with
or
some
about Tuesday,
T-shirt clients, pair of
25th
clients.
of
I
August of last year at the city of Kenosha in this county.
feel like
The
I missed it.
defendant recklessly caused the death of another human being, Joseph D. Rosenbaum, under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. First-degree reckless homicide, as defined in the criminal code, is committed by
Maybe
one who
not.
recklessly causes the death of another human being under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life.
What time is this supposed to
Before you may
start?
find the defendant guilty of reckless homicide of the first degree, the state must prove by evidence
feel like I missed it.
satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following three elements were present. First, that the defendant caused the death of another. Cause means that the defendant's act was a substantial factor in producing the death.
Well, yeah.
Second, that the defendant caused the death by criminally reckless conduct. Criminally Criminally reckless conduct means the conduct created a risk of death or great bodily harm to another person, and that the risk of death or great bodily harm was unreasonable and substantial, and that the defendant was aware that his conduct created the unreasonable and substantial risk of death or great bodily harm. The circumstances and the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. In determining whether the circumstances of the conduct showed utter disregard for human life, you should consider these factors: what the defendant was doing, why he was engaged in that conduct, how dangerous the conduct was, how obvious was the danger, whether the conduct showed any regard for human life, and all other facts and circumstances relating to the conduct. If, as to the first count, you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt
Well,
both elements of this
you're not
crime
exactly wrong.
and that the defendant was not acting lawfully in self-defense,
I would say that all three people were definitely pursuing him aggressively. Now, obviously, the other guy that died
then you should
hit him
find
with the
the defendant guilty
skateboard,
of reckless
you
homicide
know,
of the first degree as
went up there and went smacking him up.
satisfied, then you must find the defendant not guilty on this count.
And the other guy
Count
kicked him in the
information
face.
accused the defendant of the crimes of recklessly endangering safety. Although the elements of each of these charges are identical, the rules of self-defense which apply to them are not.
It's like so complicated because when you put it in the
The
words,
second count of the information charges that at the same
you read
time
it
and
as it
place,
is,
the defendant
it's confusing to say, like, well, yeah, kinda. Some of that applies, but
recklessly endangered
duh.
the safety of Richard McGinnis under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. The third count of the information charges that at the same time and place, the defendant recklessly endangered the safety of an unknown male under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. First degree reckless endangerment, as defined in the criminal code, is committed by one who recklessly endangers the safety of another human being under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. Before you may find the defendant guilty of reckless endangerment of the first degree, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following three elements were
Yeah,
present.
let's see. See the
First, that the defendant First, that the defendant endangered the safety of another human being.
well, yes, he did because he
And
carried a
the risk
weapon.
of death or great bodily harm was unreasonable and substantial. And the
That's gonna be the
defendant was
hard one.
aware that his conduct created the unreasonable and substantial risk of death or great bodily harm.
If you carry an
bodily
AR-15
harm means,
with bullets in it,
injury
you
which
assume the
creates a
risk
substantial risk of
that you're
death,
going to create
causes serious
death or
permanent
bodily harm.
disfigurement, or which causes a permanent or protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member or organ or other serious bodily injury. The third element is that the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life.
But see,
Again, determining
what's frustrating about that is it doesn't say anything about the other people who showed disregard for his life.
is doing, why the defendant was engaged in that conduct, how dangerous was the conduct, how obvious was the danger, whether the conduct showed any regard for human life, and all other facts and circumstances related to the conduct.
So here's what and from watching the trial, like when you just look at it for what it is, right? You got a kid who has a weapon. How did Rosenbaum come to the realization that he would like to chase after Kyle Rittenhouse? Because at this point, think about this: when Rosenbaum was the first one to go down, right? So why did Rosenbaum feel the need to go after Kyle Rittenhouse at all? Why was he chasing him through a parking lot? Kyle had not shot anybody or harmed anybody or caused harm to any person before Rosenbaum, for some reason, is chasing him, right? Is that a part that I just missed, or am I on point with that? Because I don't remember ever hearing about that. All we really see is the video from him running through the parking lot, turns and shoots him. Well, clearly he was intimidated. I mean, we have video evidence of that, but that's not enough. Intimidation isn't enough to warrant him shooting him, right? So why was he chasing him through the parking lot? So you go from that, right? Because you don't just chase a motherfucker for no reason unless you intend to do something to him. So then after that, we have the other two victims, as he calls them, the other two aggressors. The one kid runs up, obviously hits him in the freaking head with a skateboard, which I argue, if you're going to take anything of decent size and weight and solid and hit somebody, strike them in the head, then you're going, yeah, but he's going to try and take his gun for what reason? But that's what I'm saying. Rosenbaum has no reason to remove the weapon from Kyle Rittenhouse. He has no right to do it. If I see you walking down the street with a gun, I cannot just come take it because I don't want you to have it. That's not how this works. Right? So you can't just come take the weapon. Oh. That's not a justification for him chasing him down, try to get it. Because at this point, like I said, Kyle's done nothing with the gun except carry it around. Rosenbaum was the first one to engage. So then you move on to the other guys. If I take anything of freaking decent size and weight and try to hit you in the head with it, you know, it's might as well be intent to damn near kill somebody. And then you got, you know, Gage, whatever his name is, Gustav, and however you say his name, I don't even care. That dude had a weapon. So you come up there, he pulled his weapon, he got shot. No shit. Shooting the skateboard kid.
A moment ago on reckless homicide, I indicated there were
Clearly he's in fear.
elements. There are actually three
Elevated adrenaline. He had just shot somebody 4 times.
so it's clear that there are 3 elements to
And I find it interesting that they tried to recount like every second,
it's actually
microsecond in what had happened because there's no way he remembers. Over the length of time it's been, there's no way. What's up, Sean?
let's just we'll stop
You can't say that he had ever had intent to shoot it, though.
for a moment and return to the reckless homicide. In the elements of reckless homicide,
That's the problem, Sean, with that assessment is you could say that every person
that he did so
carrying a weapon left with the intent to shoot it. You could say that Gage had a handgun on him
is that the
with the intent to use it.
defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. And what tipped me off
Well, he
is,
definitely didn't miss.
other than causing death, the reckless endangerment, which I've been reading now, has those same 3 elements. So
Reckless endangerment is going to get him.
disregard for human life is one of the elements of the
I don't know about disregard for human life.
crimes.
That's hard to say for.
And in order to convict on the first count, you must find the presence of all 3
Yeah, but he went to a chaotic area to help people.
of
He went there to provide aid to people, and he did, in fact, provide aid to people. It looks like my camera's frozen. No, I'm good. Okay.
is that clear?
So you can't say that he just went there to harm people.
Getting back to the reckless endangerment charge with respect to Mr. McGinnis, there is evidence in this case that the defendant was acting in self-defense as to Joseph Rosenbaum.
And age also should be irrelevant. I agree.
The fact that the law may have allowed the defendant to use
He's gonna be
force
charged
in
as an adult.
self-defense as to Joseph Rosenbaum does not necessarily mean that recklessly endangering the safety of Richard McGinnis was lawful. You must consider the law of self-defense in deciding whether the defendant's conduct as to Richard McGinnis was criminal.
What's up, Lucid?
conduct, which showed utter disregard.
You
for
are
human
correct.
life.
They're
The
accurate.
defendant does not have a privilege of self-defense with respect to Mr. McGinnis. So
Interesting.
the defendant would enjoy a privilege of self-defense with respect to Mr. Rosenbaum if you find the factual ingredients of that. But that doesn't mean that the fact that if he endangered the safety of Mr. McGinnis was privileged under the law of self-defense because Mr. McGinnis was not attacking him. However,
So trying to just separate, I think, the self-defense clause to individual
must consider
cases
the law
here.
of self-defense in deciding whether the defendant's conduct as to Richard McGinnis was criminally reckless conduct which showed utter disregard for human life.
I see. That's where I can't agree. It's utter disregard for human life.
The law of self-defense allows the defendant to threaten or intentionally use force against another only if the defendant believed that there was an actual or imminent interference with the defendant's person, that he believed that the amount of force he used or threatened to use was necessary to prevent or terminate the interference, and that his beliefs were reasonable. The defendant may intentionally use force which is intended to or likely to cause death or great bodily harm only if the defendant
Yeah, he's definitely being tried as an
believed that
adult.
the force used was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily injury to himself.
So
He believed may
in the
be
in the
reasonable even though mistaken.
terms of Gage pulled a handgun. That's why Gage got shot.
The standard is what a person
I don't think he ever would have shot Gage
believed
if he didn't pull that gun.
under the circumstances existing at the time of the alleged offense. The reasonableness of the defendant's beliefs must be determined from the standpoint of the defendant at the time of his acts and not from the viewpoint of
Nah, he's not a child. Nowhere near a child. 17 years old. He enlisted in the military.
You should consider the evidence relating to self-defense along with all the other evidence in the case in deciding whether the defendant's conduct created an unreasonable risk of death or great bodily harm to Richard McGinnis. If the defendant was acting lawfully in self-defense with respect to Joseph Rosenbaum, his conduct did not create an unreasonable
Yikes.
risk to another. The burden is on the state to prove by the burden is on the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not act lawfully in self-defense, and you must be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt from all of the evidence in this case that the risk was unreasonable. You should consider the evidence relating to self-defense in deciding whether the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. The burden is on the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not act lawfully in self-defense, and you must be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt from all of the evidence in this case that the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. If, as to each of these counts, you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the
I'm going to put a
elements
poll
have
on
been
here.
proved
Let's see what it comes out to.
and that the defendant was
I don't know where it shows
not
up, but I
acting lawfully
posted it.
in self-defense, you should find the defendant guilty of reckless homicide of the first degree. If you are not so satisfied, then you must find the defendant not guilty. The fourth count of the information charges that at the same time and place, the defendant caused the death of another human being, Anthony M. Huber, with intent to kill that person. This is a charge of intentional homicide of the first degree, and you must
See,
consider first whether the
when you watch what happened, I can't say that he had intent to kill him. That kid hit him, went to hit him again, and he pulled the trigger, and it just happened to hit him in a place that killed him. But that could have just as easily hit him somewhere else, and he could have been okay. He only shot Anthony Hubert once from a position where he had no chance to even remotely aim the weapon. He just shot the weapon in self-defense. So I can't say that one would hold up. Yeah, that's weird that they haven't charged Gage with being in possession of a weapon as a felon.
There are certain elements which are common to each crime.
That's true.
Both intentional and reckless homicide require that the defendant have caused the death of another. First and second degree intentional homicide require the state to prove the additional fact that the defendant have acted with the intent to kill. First degree reckless homicide requires that the defendant acted recklessly and that the circumstances of his conduct showed utter disregard for human life. It will also be important for you to consider the privilege of self-defense in deciding which crime, if any, the defendant has committed. Self-defense, the Criminal Code of Wisconsin provides that a person is privileged.
Yeah, see, here's the problem with all of this, Todd, is that
what he reasonably believes to be
he had no idea of any of this, so it doesn't matter.
by the other
Like,
However, he
all their
maintains
previous
that
history
such
is
force
irrelevant because
he reasonably believes
Kyle
is
didn't know them
necessary
prior to that. He
to
couldn't
prevent or
possibly
terminate
known
the
any of that,
He may not intentionally use force
which I
which
think is why,
likely to cause death
where's the state
unless
university?
he
Let me take
reasonably
this call.
believes
It's a
that
weird
such
number.
force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself. As applied to this case, the effect of the law of self-defense is
These
defendant
motherfuckers
is
got
not
me.
guilty of any
Listen.
homicide offense if the defendant reasonably
Factory cut off.
believed that he was
And this is a
preventing or
courtesy call.
terminating
Unbelievable.
an unlawful
It says
force
Georgia State
used
University on it,
or
and it's
reasonably
about my
believed the force used by
extended
him-
auto warranty. These
and
motherfuckers got
reasonably
me.
believed that the force used by him was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself.
Let's see how this is
Defendant
doing.
guilty of second-degree
No,
intentional
not great.
homicide if he
Not
caused the
great.
death of another human being with intent to
Yikes.
kill
Look at Luminar.
and
Where the
actually
hell is
believed
Luminar
the
going?
force used was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself, but the belief or the amount of force used was unreasonable. The defendant is guilty of first-degree intentional homicide if he intended to cause the death of another with the intent to kill and did not actually believe that the force used was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself. The defendant is guilty of first-degree reckless homicide if the defendant caused the death of another by criminally
I mean, there's a
reckless
few stocks
conduct
moving today.
and the
About
circumstances
Tesla
of
getting
the
shit on.
conduct showed utter disregard for human life.
Oof. Tesla hit 978. Yikes. That's rough.
You will be asked to consider the privilege of self-defense in deciding whether the elements of first-degree reckless homicide are present. Because the law
Ooh,
provides
MU,
that it is
damn.
the state's burden to prove all facts necessary to constitute
Yikes.
a crime beyond a reasonable doubt, you will not be asked to make a separate finding on whether the defendant acted in self-defense.
Today's a choppy day in the market, man.
To determine whether the state has established
Risky business on all that.
necessary facts to justify a finding of guilty for first or second degree intentional homicide or for first degree reckless homicide. If the state does not satisfy you that those facts are established by the evidence, you will be instructed to find the defendant not guilty. The facts necessary to constitute each crime will now be defined for you in greater detail.
Oh my God. Greater detail.
Intentional homicide is defined in the criminal code as committed by one who
All right. We're going to come back to this because a lot happening there, man. We don't need a definition of all of it. It's just reading the criminal code to the jurors. Going to bore them to death. Oh my God. Why did Pinduoduo fall so hard? That's gross. I'm on the sidelines today too, man. For sure. Oh, look at this guy. Patrick Leahy, longest serving U.S. Senator still in office, announces he won't seek re-election. Good. How old is this guy? Freaking 250 years old? Oh my God. He's been serving since 1975. It's too long, man. How old is this dude? He's born 1940. You're too old. Shouldn't even be in office now. Get out of here. Ugh, way too old. So I just want to hear these closing arguments, but it's going to be a minute before that happens, I think. Yeah, they should definitely only serve 2 terms. So crazy that we have no term limits. So crazy. Let's see what else has happened here. Damn, 10 people now died from the Astro World Festival. A 9-year-old boy injured there has died, bringing the death toll to 10 people. That's so crazy. No, I haven't been dabbling in crypto. Old Lucid there's the crypto king, man. The penny stock bad boy. Over there slinging them penny stocks. Making bank. We gotta do the iList podcast, Lucid. We've got to talk about these. I need to get you on here. We need to do this crypto penny stock hitter. Whoa, what is this? I know there's some good news out there that's probably pretty ridiculous. Oh my God, Fox News, get off my screen. Click one article and it just won't let you do anything unless you give them your email address. It says Austin, Texas high school removes bathroom doors due to safety concerns. I want to know more about this. How do you remove the doors in a high school bathroom? How about you remove the doors in any bathroom? And that's okay. I'm trying to copy it, won't let me. Let's find it. Let's find the article. Austin High School removes bathroom doors due to significant behavioral events. These ads. Wow. It sent a letter to parents explaining the school is removing them to combat drug use and other code of contact violations. Significant behavioral events, along with student code of conduct violations that have taken place in our restrooms. Our bathrooms were unsafe, and students' incidents are evidence of this. 90% of drug offenses this year have taken place in the restroom. So let me get this straight. They won't do drugs if there's no door on the stall. Is that what the ideology is here? What? The school tried locking restroom doors when they were not monitored, but found that they were inconvenient for students because it was forced them to walk further. Think about how many kids probably just go in there to use the bathroom and don't go in there to do drugs and masturbate. All those suffer now. All those they got to walk farther. They can't. It's so crazy. It's so ridiculous. Wowzers. No doors. Hmm. Yikes. Yikes to all that. Oh, they're still reading all that crap. Look at Luminar today. There's no reason for this. Luminar did not have a good earnings report. Like, what is there? Was there a deal with somebody that's not on here? There's no news. Snap strikes licensing deal with Sony Music. That's why Snapchat ran. So now you get to play some more music on your Snapchat rolls. I tried to do a video about Luke Combs' new song. And man, let me tell you, they don't allow that at all. Whoever his record label is, hard pass. They are not interested in letting you do any social commentary. It's a great song, though, man. That doing this song, man, I felt that in my core, man. That was that's a good song. Respect, giving out, some love and appreciation to someone who'd been there with him. I really felt that. I can't believe this thing just falling so hard. Look at Boeing. Square to the moon. 4% up on Square. Wowzers. Zoom not doing too bad. XLU not doing bad. FAMI Oracle moved pretty decent. It's choppiness. American Airlines down. Apple falling. Yeah, choppy market. Super choppy market. He's still over here just reading the law to people. Yikes. Look at that. Qualcomm got a price increase to $200 by JP Morgan. Stock price does not reflect that. But Qualcomm could be something decent. Damn. Shib. Dude, the Shib army has got to stop. Calm down, Shib army. Calm down, Shib. It's at 0.00005. What did it peak at? 8 or something? Oh, man. It's not going anywhere unless you can trade it on easy to use platforms. That's my belief with that. I don't think it's going to go anywhere unless you can just buy it easily on your phone. Oh, my God. 4% on Pinduoduo. Yikes. I don't love that. I don't love that at all. Gross. Oh, he's still reading this. He's going to read this entire law book to the jury. Yeah, you can get it on Webull, but Not a lot of people use Webull still. I mean, he's just going to town over there. Yikes. Your 10 shorts. What are you on YouTube Shorts? Know what you're talking about there, champ? YouTube Shorts. How am I going to find this? You've got why would you put Iron Man 3 in the title? It's like going to pull up so much other stuff. It's going to be impossible to find it under Iron Man 3, champ. Oh. Let's see if I can find it. You got 44-second video there. You said you had how many? All right, let's see here. I see him. I see him. I found you here. We got a Let's Go Kyle Pokemon out with it. Pac-Man, that was that. Let's go, Kyle. Yikes. Well, that's Jacob Blake. But, yeah, what you got going on there? What do you got going on there? I don't understand what you got here. What are you doing? Trying to figure it out. Let's see.
Absolutely. I'm no expert. I defer to you, Anthony. You're the wonder boy.
Are you just cutting them in there? Is that what you got going on? Try to figure it out. This is I'm just gonna be honest. This whole like video inside a video thing, not appealing. It's not appealing to watch. That's just my take on it. Yeah, they did dismiss count 6, but we knew that was going to happen ahead of time. WT, thanks for stopping by. We knew they were going to dismiss that. Prosecutors that look alike. What do you think? He looks like Tony Stark or some shit? You don't look like Robert Downey Jr. You want to see something crazy? Let me find this. This is wild. Now, since your whole your Veritas thing there, let me see if I can find this video. I saw it on TikTok about the Astroworld thing, and I was like, very nice. I mean, let me see if I can pull it up. Astroworld, where are you? Ah, here we go. Okay.
So Travis,
hold on a second. I'm gonna put this up over here. Let's see if we can see this. All right. And then let me respond to this guy real quick. All right, this I found very interesting. And keep in mind, it's completely conspiracy theorist, but it was interesting. You ready?
Scott released a new single called Escape Plan the day of his Astroworld incident. You can see here in the music video that he's wearing a Pearl Jam t-shirt, but something that stood out to me was the subtleness of the shirt. Like, it looks like he's trying to hide it. I slowed it down here so you could see the t-shirt. But I did some research on Pearl Jam, and I came across the Roskilde tragedy. There was 50K fans waiting to see Pearl Jam. There was also 50K fans waiting to see Travis Scott. 8 people died at the Roskilde tragedy, and 8 people died at the Astroworld.
Now that's 10 people, but
Roskilde tragedy
still
happened in the year 2000. This is where things start to get real crazy, though. Check out Pearl Jam's artwork on their merch from their 2000 tour. But this shit is crazy to me because the number 8 plays such a big role in all of this, and I'm not really sure how. Look at the eyeball in the center, okay? And then, boom, eyeball right there. Wait for it to zoom out. Damn, that's 8 flames coming off the stage right there. Mind you, his set only looked like this while he was performing his new song, Escape Plan.
Isn't that crazy?
All of this ties in.
Isn't that wild? That's crazy, man. 8 people died. 8 people died. The number 8, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Thought it was quite interesting.
Believe that the force used was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself. You should find the
Kylie Jenner. Why do you name all of these so weird?
If you are not so satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of attempted first or second degree intentional homicide, you must determine whether the defendant is guilty of the lesser included offense of first degree recklessly endangering safety as defined in the criminal code, which is a lesser included offense of attempted first and second
Fuck is
degree
that?
intentional
Alrighty.
homicide. First degree recklessly endangering
Gotta try to
safety
send me
is
his
defined in the
logo,
criminal
and
code
it's
as committed by one who
looks
recklessly
jacked
endangers
up.
the safety of another human being under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. Before you may find the defendant guilty of first degree reckless endangerment, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following 3 elements were present. First, that the defendant endangered the safety of another human being. Second, that he did so by criminally reckless conduct, which means that his conduct created a risk of death or great bodily harm to another, and that the risk of death or great bodily harm was unreasonable and substantial, and that he was aware that his conduct created the unreasonable and substantial risk.
Yeah, it's
Okay, so Travis Scott.
right here. KMS presents.
Creates a substantial risk of death, or which causes permanent.
And I copy the link. Maybe you can pull the link out of there. That's a link to it.
Protracted loss or impairment of the function
Crazy video.
of any bodily member or organ or other serious bodily injury. Third, that the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. In determining whether the circumstances of the conduct showed utter disregard for human life, you should consider these factors: what the defendant was doing, why he was doing it, how dangerous was the conduct, how obvious was the danger, whether the conduct showed any regard for life, and all other facts and circumstances relating to the conduct. If you are satisfied that all 3 elements of this offense have been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and that the state has proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was not acting lawfully in self-defense, then you should find the defendant guilty of reckless endangerment of the first degree as submitted. If you are not so satisfied, then you must find the defendant not guilty. You are not in any event to find the defendant guilty of more than one of any sequence of offenses. So you can return only one verdict per count. You should consider the charged offense first. If you find unanimously that the defendant is guilty of the highest degree of crime, you need not consider lesser included offenses. if you decide unanimously the defendant did not commit the greater crime and was acting lawfully in self-defense.
Hmm?
I've got myself into a mid-sentence and I don't like it.
What does that mean? Come on, Grandpa. What does that mean? Dude, don't pull out this giant law book and read it to us. You want to hear something crazy? This is a crazy one that popped up right here. 3 dead, over 500 hospitalized in Egypt from heavy storms and scorpion stings. Bro, look at this. Flooding left 3 people dead and more than 500 hospitals from scorpion stings. The amount of water that rushed into the city caused scorpions to flee from their hiding places into many houses across the province. He said that at least 503 people were hospitalized after suffering scorpion stings, and that all of them were discharged after given anti-venom, and that Egypt is home to the Egyptian fat-tailed scorpion, which is considered one of the most deadly scorpions in the world, with as many deaths coming as a result from its poisonous stinger. That is wild, man. It's raining outside, and you get attacked by scorpions. Scorpions, of all things. What? Didn't see that coming, man. Scorpions. Unreal. What's up, Full Matter? Justin Hammer. Who's Justin Hammer? Marvel Cinematics Universe.
Concern that I have, and I worked with the instructions all weekend, and we discussed them by email, and then I'm reading them, and little things are striking me as I read them. But the jurors are never told to actually discuss self-defense except in the context of charged offenses. And what I was about
Man, I'm watching from the sidelines today, Full Matter. I don't have any money to play with. My swing is getting smoked. We're peeking over here, but
any charged offense, but let's use this one.
the market was pretty volatile today, and it is not doing me any favors. I swung Pinduoduo and gross 4% down for no reason.
Lawfully in self-defense, they're done. They never discuss the lessers. What?
Was or was not acting lawfully in self-defense?
Well, let's say if they decide the elements are there, but he was
It's not a bad
not acting lawfully in self-defense, they're done.
doppelganger.
Then they find him guilty of the charged crime. What if they discuss count 1 or count 5, I should say, and decide that the elements are there, but they all decide it was privileged under the law of self-defense? They're not. Is there anywhere that they're being told? Are they being told you're done? See, under the old law, we did do that. Is that in here? Where is it saying that?
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I used to construct these from scratch. And I would tell the jury, which I was just doing now, that once you have exhausted this, you're done. As opposed to having them needlessly go through these lessers if they've already concluded that. And this is a case where this could happen. I'm not saying it should or would. I'm saying it could, that they would decide, well, yeah, the elements are there, and then they make a decision. And if all of them say well, they all vote not guilty on the basis of valid self-defense, then they really should not be considering lesser included. Am I right, wrong about that?
So if they find perfect self-defense on the charged count,
Yeah.
they should be told.
You see what this? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, I understand where the court's coming from. I guess they could consider the other ones in 30 seconds and just go down to be not guilty. But
they're so complicated as it is.
no, I understand.
I feel terrible about giving this kind of stuff. It's just so well. Anyway, you know, see what the instruction is telling them that kind of cryptically. It says if after it tells them if after a full discussion.
Nah, you don't look like him. You crazy. Nah, they don't look nothing alike. I can't agree with on that one. You don't have paralyzed legs? Look at the actor that plays the Iron Patriot. James Rhodes.
It says, however, if after a full and complete consideration of
No,
the
it's,
evidence, you conclude
Don
that further
Cheadle, isn't it?
deliberation would not result in unanimous agreement on the charge of second-degree intentional homicide. I'm going back
You
to
look
a
nothing like
different
Don
count.
Cheadle.
You should consider whether the defendant is guilty. So it is telling them. It is telling them. Yeah, I just think it's kind of unclear.
I think it's very unclear. And what you're saying is the law. So they all agree that the elements are met and there's a privilege. You don't go any further.
Pardon me?
I believe the pattern instruction makes that clear enough. If they can unanimously agree, which includes the privilege, they're done. They don't have to go forward.
Where does it use? It says you should make every reasonable effort to agree unanimously on the charge of second-degree intentional homicide before considering
Yeah, hold on. I
the
just want to
offense
hear
of
this.
first-degree reckless homicide. However, if after a full and complete consideration of the evidence, you conclude that further deliberation would not result in unanimous agreement on the charge of second-degree homicide, you should consider whether the defendant is guilty of first-degree reckless homicide. So, there, I don't think it's not the way a person would speak if he wanted to make things clear.
Interesting.
And I'm not saying anyone deliberately is trying to make things unclear, but
I think one can say that about all 30-some pages of the.
don't do that. People will find out our lawyer's secret.
I think it's clear in the instructions. If the court did wish to make it clear, I would just say, just explain if you're unanimous either way on the first count, there's no need to go to the lessers.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I think I'll tell them that in any sequence, if there are lessers submitted to them, once they've discussed the highest count,
Okay,
if
so they're
they
just
are
giving them a
unanimous.
backtrack here.
either way, then they're done.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what he's saying is they go in there, if murder one is the highest count, if they're all unanimous on that, then they don't discuss any other counts pertaining to that. If they're not unanimous, then they go to the lesser count and they try to get unanimous on that. And they're just going to go down this list of, reckless endangerment or whatever and decide whether or not he's guilty of these other crimes beneath that one. He's being charged with 5 charges, but theoretically, it's probably more like 15 possible outcomes right now. But they're just trying to let him step down. All right, I'll play your video. Let's see here. Let's see what you got. I'm just letting you know, I don't like how it's just chopped up here. Just do something different with that. Let's see.
Absolutely.
Because we can't see it.
I'm no expert. I defer to you, Anthony. You're the wonder boy. say most. Yeah, I'd say most.
What did you have happening here?
You're the Wonder Boy. Senator, if I may. Wow.
I mean, those look a lot like him in the clip.
The reason I was shaking my head, Your Honor, is because let's take Anthony Huber's counts, for example.
Yeah.
If the jury is unanimous that he is guilty
Oh.
of first-degree intentional homicide, they go no further.
Right.
If they are unanimous that he's not guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, then they are instructed to consider second-degree intentional homicide.
Only if they're not satisfied that it was done in self-defense. If they, for example, if in your example, if they discussed it and said, yeah, well, sure, the elements of attempt murder are there, and then they go around the table and they say, well, we all think it's not self-defense, then guilty. If they all say we don't think it's, well, actually, if they all say we don't think it's self-defense, then it's not guilty. And what the jury is being told is if you can't agree unanimously, then consider these lessers. But I don't think it's so clear as it should be.
It says if you are not so satisfied.
I know it. Well, that's at the very end.
And
Interesting.
I think what the court was originally proposing
Bro,
is telling the jury that if you're
That's got to be the most confusing
the charge
thing to
count
even
one
bring
way or
up.
the other, then you go no further.
I like that.
That's not the law.
If you're unanimous
So, for example, with
on
Huber,
no, if you're
That's not the law.
unanimous on the legal question, intentional. Well, you're right, because it could be an elements issue.
the jury
Maybe the constructions committee is right. I don't know.
The jury only goes to lesser included if they are either unable to agree on the charge count or if they're unanimous not guilty on the charge count. Then they go to the lesser included.
Ugh.
So there is no requirement that they be unanimous on the charge count to move to the lesser.
No, they shouldn't be unanimous. If they're unanimous.
No,
if they're
unanimous and not
unanimous,
guilty.
they're done. That's what I'm trying to tell them, but I don't know how to say it.
But that's not true, because if
That's
they're
not true,
unanimous
yeah.
on first-degree intentional homicide, what they're concluding at that point is that the defendant, either the elements aren't met, or the defendant actually believed that deadly force was necessary.
Dude,
They would still
we're not living in Iron Man.
consider
Come
second-degree intentional
on.
Because it changes the
Jen Psaki does not look like
self-defense
Pepper
into the
Potts.
objective,
Pepper
reasonable
Potts
one.
is hot.
So they can be unanimous on count
Come
one.
on.
Let's take
Don't
Huber, for
even.
example. They can be unanimous.
Tell me
on,
she looks like
the
Jen
first-degree intentional
Psaki.
Homicide. They can be unanimous on that, and
Come
in the
on.
defendant's favor. But they still have to then move to the second element, or to the lesser included.
You might be right.
Perfect self-defense.
Pardon me?
If it's perfect self-defense, it's perfect self-defense for everything.
But they're not told to consider perfect self-defense.
I'm looking it up. I don't know where we're going to go with this. Because Gwyneth Paltrow does not look like
You're
her.
right. He's right. He's right.
They're not told to consider that until second-degree intentional homicide. The instructions, Your Honor, are the pattern instructions. I understand your point that if we had to redraft them today from scratch, maybe we could do better. But
Maybe we could.
I'm sure we could. But we need to follow them, and I don't
Well,
think deviation is
you're
appropriate.
right. I think you're right. They are certainly correct in what they say. I just think that they're not clear. But maybe they are. I don't know. Now let's see how much damage I've done already by my last paragraph. So can you go back to what the last thing I said to the jury?
I disagree with that one. You can't. No, Jen Psaki does not look like Gwyneth Paltrow. These are people to people, not actor to person. You just gotta look at the actual person. Man, they're gonna confuse the absolute shit out of this jury. They're gonna be like, I don't even know. I'm confused just watching it. He's confused. Bro, freaking judge is confused. We got an 89% here say not guilty on our poll so far.
You find unanimously that the defendant is guilty
9
of the
votes.
highest you need not consider lesser included offenses.
Yeah.
If you decide unanimously the defendant did not commit the greater crime and was acting lawfully in self-defense, and then that's when you stopped in mid-sentence.
So
Bro.
the first part was right. Did not commit the greater crime.
Okay. I don't know why they're so confused. This is pretty simple. If they unanimously agree that he is guilty of the maximum crime that he's being charged with, if it's murder 1 or whatever, they do not consider any lesser charges pertaining to that crime. If they are not unanimous, then they go down the list of other crimes. Now, if they are unanimous that he did not commit that crime, they still go down the list of lesser crimes. I don't understand why this is so complicated.
I read one of the comments. They talk about how we don't have, like some states do, they have a question right off the bat. Was the defendant acting lawfully in self-defense? If they answer that yes, we're all done. We've got it interlaced in all these cumbersome instructions. And now, does anyone have any objection to what I've already told the jury?
You should finish it. Melissa's.
And tell them what?
Just what we said. If you find perfect self-defense, you don't go on to the next count. It's over.
I understand what the term perfect self-defense
You thinking guilty
means,
full
but we
matter?
haven't told the jury what that means. We're deviating from the standard instructions here, and the words perfect self-defense don't have a meaning to ordinary people, would require further definition from the court, and now we're going much further afield. I also have a problem with the wording of, you know, if you find the defendant is justified in his self-defense, because we've instructed them on his own subjective self-defense belief, which is a defense to the first-degree intentional homicide, and then we've given him the instruction on what the law considers to be objective self-defense, is what a reasonable person would think. When the wording that was just read by the Madam Court Reporter doesn't delineate between those two things, and I think, as I said, and I've repeated here several times, I think the more we deviate from these standard instructions, the more confusion it causes. Counsel has asked you to read the self-defense individually on each count. So they're already being told on each count that you are to consider the final thing is the objective self-defense, and that is if you find that, then he's not guilty. And to say across the board that you find self-defense is a defense to everything is not technically true, because there are different self-defense claims as to the different counts. So, for example, he may be justified to self-defense as to Rosenbaum, but not as to Huber.
Well,
so
true.
a blanket statement that says anytime you find justified self-defense, he's not guilty, is not technically true.
Well,
So again,
it is if you're talking just about an
Good God.
individual count.
But I was saying a blanket
And I
statement,
think what I'm going to tell them, in addition to what I've already said, is if they are discussing any count that has multiple possible verdicts.
I think that the standard instruction already spells that out, Your Honor. I agree. If we had to do it from scratch, we could do it better, but I don't think we should deviate any further, because I think it's causing confusion. What the Madam Court Reporter just read back, for example, could be construed as saying anytime, with regard to any count, you find justified self-defense, he walks on all 5 counts, and that is absolutely not true.
That's not what I intend to tell them at all.
I know you don't intend to tell that, but what's already been said
Interesting.
gives that implication. And again, I just worry that the more we deviate from these standard instructions, the more we get into these issues. I think we should stick with what you drafted, which has been sent to the parties. We've all agreed on them, and I am leery of any additional language that hasn't been cleared by the parties and could cause further confusion.
Well, I can say that whenever I've dealt with lesser included, I do give a little talk about how they should address them. And this is a
Crowdsourced,
more complicated
tanked.
case than most.
23 me, Mara,
than
Upstart,
any, frankly, I
Pounded.
can remember. I don't think I've said anything incorrect so far. I don't want to step into something that I haven't already done. I am inclined, though, because I've made a statement about if everything's present, they're done because they found their defendant guilty, and I do think I probably should give the alternative, which is, and I'm not going to use terms like perfect self-defense like he did. I'm going to use the term acted lawfully in self-defense, and they're instructed on that. So I think the correct statement is, if as to any of the cases with multiple submissions, if on any individual count they find in their consideration of the charged offense that the defendant acted lawfully in self-defense, they're done. Any objection?
No.
Okay.
While we're talking about the jury instructions, it was noticed as you read them on page 10, which is count 3, it should be first-degree reckless endangerment, and it's written and you read homicide, which is not a homicide count. So
on page 10,
top page 10 on count, still at the end of count 3, it says you should find the defendant guilty of first.
yeah, you're right. You're right. It is in there as homicide. We didn't catch that last night when we talked about them. I sent you 3 drafts. But you know what? Should I just leave that alone? They'll know that. I'll change it in the printed copy. Okay, thanks.
Are you anticipating closings before lunch now? It's after 11.
How long are you going to talk in your first sequence?
I'm trying to limit myself to 2 hours.
Holy fuck. 2 hours. That's after lunch.
Troubled by taking a break in the middle of your presentation? Well, let's just kind of plan on around noon because the lunch has already been ordered. So, and I'm not going to comment on the lunch.
Wait a second. He said I'm not going to comment on the lunch.
Let's ask the jurors to come back in, please.
Oh, wow.
Take a break at. Why don't you around whenever you're comfortable around noon? Just ask for the.
Yikes.
Yeah. Well, when he's the commander of the, I don't want to interrupt him at a time he doesn't want to be.
She does not look like her. Bro. She does not.
I did.
Stop. Jen Psaki does not look like Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm going to do it. I'll freaking layer them over each other in Photoshop. Side by side. I'm going to copy it. I'm about to do that shit. You'll see where it's happening. Here we go, folks. I'm going to find it. Let me find a good straight on shot. Similar color tones. There we go.
So, folks, what I was talking about with the cases that you have multiple possible verdicts submitted to you for consideration, if when you address the charge,
you see that? Come on, man.
If in your discussions you conclude that the elements are present and the defendant was not acting lawfully in
You telling me that those two look the same?
then you needn't go any further.
Nah.
Return your verdict of guilt.
I disagree.
That conclusion. If in your discussions as to any individual count of those with multiple possible verdicts, in your initial discussion, if you decide that the defendant acted lawfully in self-defense, you're done. And you can return a not guilty verdict without considering the lesser offenses. Any question about that? It hopefully will become clear. I'm going to give you written instructions because I know this is arduous going through this, but every bit of it is important. And but you'll get written instructions for your reference in considering these things.
Blue dress. Fuck. Who's at my door?
Counts 1 through 5, that's all the counts now, each contain the guilty verdicts of any submitted offense, contain a question based upon the allegation of the information that the defendant committed the crime while using a dangerous weapon. If you find the defendant guilty on any of the counts, you must answer the following question. Did the defendant commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Dangerous weapon means any firearm, whether loaded or unloaded. A firearm is a weapon which acts by the force of gunpowder. Before you may find the answer, answer the question yes, you must be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the crime while using a dangerous weapon. If you are not so satisfied, then the question must be answered no. In reaching your verdict, examine the evidence with the utmost care and caution. Act with judgment, reason, and prudence. The defendant is not required to prove his innocence. The law presumes every person charged with the commission of a crime to be innocent, and this presumption requires a finding of not guilty, unless in your deliberations you find that it is overcome by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. The burden of establishing every fact necessary to constitute guilt is upon the state. Before you may return a verdict of guilty, the evidence must satisfy you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. If you can reconcile the evidence upon any reasonable hypothesis consistent with the innocence of the defendant, then you must do so and find him not guilty. The term reasonable doubt means a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It is a doubt for which a reason can be given, arising from a fair and rational consideration of the evidence or want of evidence. It means such a doubt as would cause a person of ordinary prudence to pause or hesitate when called upon to act in the most important affairs of life. A reasonable doubt is not a doubt which is based upon mere guesswork or speculation. A doubt which arises merely from sympathy or from fear to return a verdict of guilt is not a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a doubt such as may be used to escape the responsibility of a decision. Examine the evidence and search for the truth, giving the defendant the benefit of every reasonable doubt. Evidence is defined first as the sworn testimony of witnesses, both on direct and cross-examination, regardless of the party who called the witness. Second, any exhibits which have been received, whether or not they accompany you to the jury room. Third, any facts which the lawyers have agreed or stipulated, or which I have directed you to find. Anything that you may have seen or heard outside the courtroom is not evidence. You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered and received at this trial. You should disregard entirely any question to which I did not permit an answer. Do not guess what the witness's answer might have been, and if the question itself suggested that certain information might be true, ignore the suggestion and do not consider it as evidence. Attorneys for each side have the right and duty to object to what they feel are improper questions asked of witnesses, and to the receipt of other evidence which they believe is not properly admissible. You should not draw any inference or conclusions from the fact that an objection is made. By allowing testimony or other evidence to be received over objection, I did not mean to indicate any opinion as to that evidence. You jurors are the sole judges of the believability of the witnesses and of the weight of the evidence. At the beginning of the trial, I described the charges against the defendant, counts 6 and 7, which respectively charged possession of a firearm by a minor and curfew violation, have been disposed of and are no longer part of this case. The other counts remain. Do not guess about or concern yourselves with the reasons for these dispositions. It must not affect your consideration of the charges that remain. Do not consider evidence that related only to the counts which have been disposed of. During the trial, I have ordered certain testimony stricken, and you must disregard all such stricken testimony. Exhibits become evidence only when received by the court. An exhibit which was marked for identification but not received is not evidence. Whether or not, is not evidence. An exhibit received is
What's
evidence
up,
whether or not it
Ahmed?
accompanies you to the jury room. Remarks of the lawyers are not evidence, and if the remarks suggest certain facts not in evidence, disregard the suggestion. You should consider carefully the closing arguments of the attorneys, but their arguments, opinions, and conclusions are not evidence. Draw your own conclusions from the evidence and decide upon your verdict upon the evidence under the instructions given you by the court. I have taken judicial notice of certain facts, and you are directed to accept them as true. The state has introduced evidence of statements which it claims were made by the defendant. It is for you to determine how much weight, if any, to give to any statement. In evaluating each statement, you must consider three things: whether the statement was actually made by the defendant. Only so much of a statement as was actually made by a person may be considered in evidence.
So what I see happening right now, Ahmed, is the jury, well, they're not in here, so let's start with that. But they're trying to decide how this verdict is going to go, because they're going to get them on something. They're just lining it up for a lesser charge to snowball. I think they're going to get them on something for sure. I'm not, the self-defense on Rosenbaum is going to be the harder one. The self-defense against the other two, that's probably going to come down. But the reckless endangerment of people is going to be the tough one to get past, I think, Ahmed. I think they're going to get hung up on verbiage. We'll see. Because I'm just going to mute this. For me, we have a situation. This is where I'm at with it. And you can tell me what you think. But you've got a kid who went, obviously, to this riot, this situation, with a weapon, right? He brought the weapon to potentially defend himself. Where I have a problem is that we have this little snippets of time throughout the night and events that went down. And like I said earlier in my broadcast here, I don't see, why was Joseph Rosenbaum chasing him through a parking lot? Because at this point, he's done nothing with the gun except carry it around, which arguably you can and cannot do, right? But since they threw out the gun charge, we're going to say that he was legally allowed to carry the weapon because he's not being charged with a weapons charge. So let's pull that in here, right? He's okay to carry the gun. Take that out of the equation. Why was Rosenbaum chasing after him? For any reason, he was running. We cannot speak to what would have happened if Rosenbaum would have caught him, right? So let's say Rosenbaum catches him. What would have happened? We don't know. What we do know is that he turned, he fired 4 shots into the guy. Rosenbaum's down. From that point on, he's no longer going to act in a what we would consider a logical way. Adrenaline's up. You've just shot somebody, most likely killed them. We can't know if Kyle knew that he was dead. He didn't go back over to provide aid. So then he goes and says, I shot somebody. He gets attacked in the street. Right? He gets attacked in the street. That is undeniable what happened. He was not aggressing toward other people with a weapon. He wasn't trying to shoot other people. He wasn't trying to harm other people. Someone comes up, tries to hit him with the skateboard, stumbles over him, pop. Right? Now, if you swing anything, like I wish I had something in here just to show. If I swing something at your head, it's to knock you down, knock you out, knock you unconscious. It's to stop you from being able to do anything, right? You hit somebody in the head with stuff, there's a decent chance that they are going to be severely impacted from the impact. Well, impact from the impact. There's, the damage is going to be there, whether it's temporary, permanent, or life-threatening. Humans are fragile. You can't just go around hitting people in the head, right? So he fires a shot that he could not have possibly have aimed to kill because there was no time. It was more like this guy's right here, pulls the trigger, boom, shoots him. And that kid just happened to shoot him in the chest. He died. The other one, Gage, was coming toward him. He was not aiming at him. He was not trying to kill him. Gage pulls a gun, clearly an act of aggression. At that point, shoots him one time. He shot those two guys one time. If he had intent to kill them, I think he would have, look, man, do what everyone else did. Unload into people. He didn't do that. So that's where it gets tricky. So they're going to get him with something, because you can't just fire an AR-15 in public. Like, oh, well, I didn't mean to. You put other people in danger. Luckily, no one else got hurt. There was no stray bullets that, ended up striking people and killing them. But you can definitely say that if you bring a loaded automatic or semi-automatic rifle or pistol in a public place around people in unrest, you're already assuming the fact that this could happen, right? You're going to put people in danger. So that's where I'm at with that. You can't just go out and, okay, let me put it this way. You can take a weapon. You can go out in public to any protest, any place you want where you are legally allowed to carry the weapon all day, and it is not a crime. However, when you decide to use the weapon in any way, you assume the risk that you are potentially going to endanger the lives of the people around you. And whatever consequence comes with that. Maybe nobody gets harmed from it. Maybe shots just go, into the building or into the ground, and nobody gets hurt. And you still cannot just discharge a weapon in public, right? You can't just go down the street and just fire your gun into anything. That is not okay. So they're going to get them for something. And that's where this verbiage got tricky, because he's saying, all right, well, if you unanimously say that he's not guilty of the higher charge, well, then let's go find out what is he guilty of. And let's go down this stepping list of something until we find him guilty of something. So that's where they're going to end up getting him the most. So right now, I think they're just agreed that they're not going to.
Yourself. You don't have to memorize everything he just told you.
They're not about to do the closing argument, are they?
Surprise that this is
Maybe.
a case that there's a lot of noise and a lot of static surrounding it. So what I'd like to do at the beginning is crystallize it in a nutshell for you and keep it as simple as possible. This is a case in which a 17-year-old teenager killed 2 unarmed men and severely wounded a third person with an AR-15 that did not belong to him. This isn't a situation where he was protecting his home or his family. He killed people after traveling here from Antioch, Illinois, and staying out after a citywide curfew.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. There's no curfew charge anymore. There's no gun charge.
Although he claimed
there's no charge, but and there has been some discussion about the lawfulness of the curfew, not in this case, but elsewhere. So it's there had been a curfew announced. That does not mean that it was technically lawfully.
I think the judge wouldn't be as interjective if the prosecution wasn't walking the line and pushing it so much.
Aware of, and I think most reasonable people obeyed. Although the defendant claimed to be protecting a business that he wasn't familiar with, the actual killings in this case had nothing to do with that. And he also spent the entire evening lying about the fact that he was an EMT. None of the things that I just told you are in doubt in this case. So when we think about the defendant, I'd like you to consider, as you think about this case, what his true motivations were. Was this a situation where he sincerely cared about car source, even though
I can't play it? YouTube says it's copyrighted audio.
Not even its owners were out there that night protecting it. Was he genuinely interested in helping people? He ran around with an AR-15 all night and lied about being an EMT. Does that suggest to you that he genuinely is there to help? He's not there for the same purpose as the protesters.
It might cut my stream.
So why was he there that night? When you think about these things, I think there are some things that we can all agree on. in America, it's hard these days. People are polarized, and there's a lot of political issues back and forth. And the judge has made it clear this case is not about politics. There is common ground here. We have all agreed, and I asked you this 2 weeks ago today. Raise your hand if you agree life is more important than property. And all of you raised your hand. We also agree that no one person's life is more valuable than another. You don't get to kill someone simply because they're a drug dealer. You don't weigh a pastor's life over a teacher's life. You don't weigh a police officer's life over an engineer's life. All life is sacred. I think we can also agree that we shouldn't have 17-year-olds running around our streets with AR-15s, because this is exactly what happens.
No, that's not, you can't say that.
And finally, I want you to keep in mind that
I
we've all read
disagree.
stories and heard about heroes that step in to stop an active shooter or to give their life to save others. In fact, many people in Wisconsin went out and got carrying concealed weapon permits just so that they could be there in case there was an active shooter and wanting to stop them. So when you consider this case, look for the truth. So many people look at this case and they see what they want to see. They have a preconceived notion and they tailor the facts to fit whatever they believe. And you all agreed to keep an open mind. You all told us you didn't have any of those preconceived notions. Now you've heard the evidence, and it's time to search for the truth. So consider, for example, whether or not it's heroic or honorable to provoke and shoot unarmed people. Consider whether it makes someone a hero when they lie about being an EMT. I think all of us are familiar with someone who does the sorts of things that the defendant has done. They enjoy the thrill of going around and telling people what to do without the courage or the honor to back it up, and without the legal authority to do so. And when you think about the defendant's behavior in this case, contrast it with Anthony Huber, a man who was there because he knew Jacob Blake, who carried his skateboard everywhere, and who rushed towards danger to save other people's lives.
What danger? Who was in danger?
So when I talk to you here in my closing argument, I'm going to focus first on the murders that the defendant committed. Second, I'm going to address some background issues, give you some context, and talk about some of the things that I don't think are relevant to this case. And finally, I'm going to tie it all into the jury instructions that the judge just gave you. As prosecutors in this case, my colleague Jim Krause and I have tried to present you with all of the relevant evidence that we think you should consider in this case. And I told one of you in jury selection that at the end of this, you would be the expert. You would have all the information. You would be the one who would know all about this case and make that decision. And that's what we've tried to do. So let's go to August 25th, 2020. The defendant came from outside our community, carrying a gun that wasn't his, because he expected and anticipated violence that night. And he pretended to guard what turned out to be an empty building owned by people he'd never even met, while fraudulently claiming all night long to be an EMT. There were a lot of people out that night. Some people stayed home protecting their homes and their families. Others went to their businesses, boarded them up, and protected them. And a lot of those people had weapons. A lot of them had guns. There were other people who came along to protect Car Source or Ultimate Gas or other businesses. And many of them were armed with AR-15s, just like the defendant. In fact, you're going to see a video, and you've already seen it, of a clash between people with AR-15s at Ultimate Gas and other folks that are, I guess, protesters. And there's people getting in people's faces. There's yelling, there's shouting, there's even shoving. And yet, in this entire sequence of events, from the shooting of Jacob Blake on Sunday, August 23rd, 2020, all the way after that, everything this community went through, the only person who shot and killed anyone was the defendant. Yes, there was property damage. No one's here to defend that. No one's here to tell you it's okay to commit arson or looting. No one's here to tell you it's okay to be rioters. I'm not defending any of that. You know, because you've been told in the testimony, I'm prosecuting Joseph Zeminski for arson. That's not okay. But what you don't get to do is kill someone on the street for committing arson. So let's keep that in mind when we're talking about the people involved in this case. So let's begin with the provocation and the murder of Joseph Rosenbaum, because it's all captured on video. As the defendant and Mr. Rosenbaum arrive at the 63rd Street car source, Mr. Rosenbaum is ahead of the defendant. And as you see in the FBI video, when Mr. Rosenbaum starts to run, the defendant starts to run as well at the same time, as if he's pursuing him. Mr. Rosenbaum could not have possibly have known the defendant is behind him. There's no indication in this record that he knew the defendant was there. It's not an ambush. It's not a situation where he goes there and lays in wait for the defendant. The defendant arrives at that location, and you hear him yell, "Friendly, friendly, friendly," because he's aware of the fact that the people that he's about to confront are hostile to him. And I'm going to show you in a moment the video in which the first thing he does when he arrives at that location is drops the fire extinguisher that he's holding in his left hand so he can raise the gun with his right and left hands and point it. This is when you hear someone, I think the testimony is Rosenbaum, it's not clear to me, but either way, yell, "Gun, gun, gun." And then Mr. Rosenbaum charges around to try and stop the defendant from pointing his gun or shooting anyone. So let's take a look at some of that video.
Why do we need to look at any video? It's closing argument.
This is Exhibit 73, the full drone video.
Is that true, Lucid?
And as his weapon at people. And then the chase occurs right after that. And you're going to see that entire sequence of events here on the full drone video.
No, you're right about that, Ahmad. You're right about that. Life will never be the same. Interesting. They're not going to show us, huh? They're just going to play it.
The defendant turns as he's being pursued and points the gun at Mr. Rosenbaum. And then as he enters the area between the parked cars, he slows and turns, and before Mr. Rosenbaum can even come close, he fires at him, shooting and knocking him to the ground. Now I'm going to show you the slowed down and zoomed in
they're not
video
gonna
of
let
the
us see
defendant
it,
when he
huh?
first gets there. And Mr. Krause is going to help me by directing your attention on the larger screen here to exactly where you will see the defendant. I'm going to replay it a few times so you can see quite clearly that the defendant sets the fire extinguisher on the ground with his left hand and then brings his left hand over to the gun and raises it and points. Check the gun. Make sure it's empty.
So, I
Under
don't
Wisconsin law,
get it.
you're not allowed to run around and point your gun at people. This is the provocation. This is what starts this incident. The defendant rushes in and immediately points the gun. And as you'll see in a little bit, Mr. Rosenbaum doesn't take kindly to people pointing guns. I don't think anyone does. That's
What
not
the fuck does
unusual.
that mean? Doesn't take
No one
kindly.
wants to have the gun pointed at
Bro,
them,
you
and
point
no
a
one
gun at
wants to
me.
watch anyone else do this to
Not
someone else.
going at you. Fuck that. And
We
turn the
have
fuck
gun.
around.
It is in evidence as exhibit number 28. I'm having the detectives check it to make sure that it is safe. The defendant comes running in and drops the fire extinguisher on the ground like this. And then raises left hand to the gun and points. This is what we see in the video. Him putting the fire extinguisher on the ground and then raising the gun.
Your Honor, I object, he's facing the wrong direction.
That's an argument.
Okay.
To actually have.
Interesting.
I'll leave it alone.
So what you see in that
So that-
video is his left arm
What?
reaching for the gun.
Wait, what? This dude just said. Except for Rambo. This guy just said, well, I'm going to object because he's facing the wrong direction. He said, well, that's an argument. No, that's a matter of fact. You are telling the jury, you're telling them a sequence of events that you are telling us is factual, and then having a non-factual incident interpretation of it directed right at them.
He loses the right
What?
to self-defense. You cannot claim self-defense against a danger you create. That's
That's
critical, right?
how. How did
If
he?
you're the-
How did he create the danger when he is being chased? How is that creating the danger? How much time happened between the time that he dropped the fire extinguisher and shot him?
And we have slowed down portions of that chase for you.
That's insane.
So what we have right here on the screen, this is
If I'm being chased, I'm in danger.
the middle portion of the
Me. I'm not running away from something that's not in danger.
throwing that plastic bag.
What?
And then the defendant turns and points the gun back at Mr. Rosenbaum. And this is the moment in time when Mr. Rosenbaum essentially does sort of a little hop with both of his hands in the air. And the defendant has testified. He saw at that moment that there was nothing in the defendant's hand, or in Mr. Rosenbaum's hands. He was unarmed. There's the defendant turning and pointing the gun. Mr. Rosenbaum leaps, his hands out to the air, and then watch here at the end. This is where the shooting occurs. Mr. Rosenbaum is not even within arm's reach when the first shot occurs. I'll play that again. The defendant is pointing the gun at Mr. Rosenbaum. Mr. Rosenbaum raises his arms off to the side. The defendant approaches these cars and slows down, and then turns and shoots Mr. Rosenbaum.
Interesting.
Finally, I'm going to play you Exhibit 86. This shows you the final part of that, zoomed in and slowed down. Here's the defendant running in between those parked cars, slowing down, and you can see just how close, or rather how far away,
What's up, Red 5
Mr.
Golf?
Rosenbaum was when the defendant
Vote
shot
in the
him.
poll, buddy.
You can see from this video that Mr. Rosenbaum is not even within arm's reach of the defendant when the first shot goes off. The defendant fires 4 shots in quick succession. And I'll come back to this in a moment, but you'll note during this entire sequence, it's the defendant who chooses where to go. He's the one who decides to run where he runs. And he slows down right as he gets to these parked cars. That's what allows Rosenbaum to get closer. We've seen this on the aerial footage from the FBI, and I want you to see that perspective as well.
Isn't it crazy that the FBI has aerial footage of this? Isn't that wild in itself? I think that's crazy.
This is Exhibit
Oh,
25.
damn, Red 5 Golf.
This is the annotated aerial footage.
Yikes.
You see the defendant approach, running in the
well,
same direction as Mr. Rosenbaum.
Got Rosenbaum 4 times.
This is where the pointing occurs in the direction of the Zeminskis. You can see Joshua Zeminski's right there on the screen. I'm going to put the cursor over where the Zeminskis are. They're right in there. The defendant is pointing his gun right here, and he's pointing it in the direction of the Zeminskis because they're standing next to that car. And then the chase occurs. Now, what's interesting to me is watch when the crowd starts to run. The crowd's already starting to run here even before the defendant has fired a shot. That's likely because they heard the first shot from Joshua Zeminski, and the crowd starts to run away. The defendant has testified that that shot from Mr. Zeminski had nothing to do with his decision to kill Joseph Rosenbaum. And I'll come back to that in a second.
It's an
Finally, I'm
interesting
gonna show
use of
you
word
this
play.
incident from the perspective of Drew Hernandez, because he is behind all of this, and then he comes upon Mr. Rosenbaum's body. Is that audio playing? Why is the audio not playing? Is it coming?
Yeah, I'm with you, Full Matter. I don't think any of those people should be there.
Sure, why you're not hearing any audio on that?
That's my take on it.
He's not.
Like,
Can you text Brian, please?
no reason to go out and cause all this trouble, man.
At any rate, for this purpose,
Yeah, I'm with you, Red 5 Golf. We can't go on what ifs. Because my take on it is, what if Rosenbaum caught him? What if? What if Kyle Rittenhouse tripped and fell? What if he was on the ground? What would have happened? We don't know. What if he fell, Rosenbaum came up, kicked him in the head, knocked him unconscious, took his weapon? And what if he died from the kick in the head? I mean, that's a theoretical problem. You know, like, it's not T-Pack Rosenbaum, Jesus Christ. So, yeah, they've established that he didn't know this business. He had, you know, here's the thing. I'm going to say this when it comes to defending the business. You don't have to know the business owner to go stand up for it. Like, if you want to go out there and be this person, this call to arms person, and say, all right, you know what? This town is about to burn to the ground. I would prefer if you didn't burn to the ground a car dealership full of cars. I mean, you could do millions of dollars of damage, period, to that business. You could end, but they say about, oh, property over life. Okay. Let's say they burn that business to the ground. What happens to the family that owns that business? What kind of financial distraught position do you put them in? What kind of mental anguish do they suffer? Maybe they commit suicide. We want to go down what ifs? Those are all what ifs. We need to go out facts. Facts. And you keep saying unarmed. I get it. If you're unarmed, why are you chasing somebody with an AR-15?
that did not happen. It is the one fact in this case the defendant wants you to believe,
Like,
that there's no video.
bad idea.
And in fact, I have the video of the entire incident. I've played it for you, and I'll show it to you again. There's no threat. There's also no evidence that Mr. Rosenbaum ever wanted the defendant's gun. He never said, I'm going to take your gun. He never said, I want
That they know of.
indication of that.
They weren't there.
Dr. Kelly has testified that the first shot that the defendant fired at Joseph Rosenbaum hit the victim in the right pelvis, fracturing it. Mr. Rosenbaum was incapacitated at that
Bro,
point.
we're talking not even a
Whatever threat
second.
he might have posed, it's over. There is no further threat. He
Can't say that.
ground. And the defendant doesn't stop after that first shot. He tracks Mr. Rosenbaum's body all the way down, firing 3 more shots. A second shot, which goes through Mr. Rosenbaum's hand, and then a third and fourth shot, one that grazes the right scalp and one that goes right into Mr. Rosenbaum's back. And that is the kill shot. That is the one that took Mr. Rosenbaum's life. There is no evidence that Mr. Rosenbaum was reaching for the defendant's gun. And after that first shot,
No evidence that he was not reaching for it.
Rosenbaum could have taken that gun even if he wanted to. He is already falling to the ground. He is helpless. He is vulnerable. And as I said, the kill shot is the one to the back. This is that wound. Dr. Kelly testified that the angle of this shot was from the left shoulder towards the center of the back, and the bullet continued on down towards the right lower back area, tearing through bodily organs and killing Mr. Rosenbaum. Here's a picture of the wound to the hand. There's been a lot of testimony about this wound. This is one in which the evidence suggests that Mr. Rosenbaum's hand was most likely turned in this position, palms outward with his thumb to the ground, when the wound, the bullet, goes through the area in between his middle finger and his ring finger and penetrates the lower knuckle of the middle finger and the index finger before exiting. Dr. Kelly testified there's soot in that area, suggesting that the hand was close to the end of the defendant's barrel of the AR-15 at the time of that shot. The defense wants you to believe it's there because Mr. Rosenbaum is deliberately reaching for the gun.
Right?
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
What?
First of all, this occurs after Mr. Rosenbaum has been shot in the hip and has got a fractured pelvis at that point. He is falling. He is not able to walk. He's probably not even able to control much of his movements at this point. When you're reaching for that gun, this is not the way you're going to do it. This is not going to be effective.
Bro,
I submit.
Why are we talking about these two people as if they are Navy SEALs? Right? You've got a kid who has been trained to shoot guns and obviously knows how to handle a weapon. And you've got a guy chasing after him. Why would you chase somebody with a gun? For what reason do you chase a person with a gun who hasn't shot anybody, who hasn't threatened you in any way with said gun? You know, I've seen that comment a few times. Oh, it makes me laugh because it's true, but yikes. I just, I don't, they're like, oh, well, his hand was close to the gun. He wasn't reaching for it. How much time elapsed? Man, look, these guys, this thing happened within seconds. Seconds. Decisions were made. Rosenbaum made bad decision. Hey, kid with AR-15. I talked a lot of smack to. I may have threatened him. I'm going to chase him. I'm going to throw something at him. I'm going to continue chasing him. And when he turns around to shoot me, oops, I fucked up, but he didn't hit the ground. Like, he didn't try to get out of the way. And no, he ran right into him. Pow. If you're close enough to have soot from the barrel, you're pretty close to that dude. And to say the first shot missed, let's say, what if the first shot missed him, didn't hit him, and he grabbed hold of him? We don't know. Why was he? Why was Joseph Rosenbaum the only person in Kenosha chasing Kyle Rittenhouse that had a gun?
Punches, we're pushing, we're shoving, we're whatever. But what you don't do is you don't bring a gun to a fist fight.
Okay, well, Gage brought a gun to a fist fight. So there you go. Also, he's not the only person in Kenosha with a gun.
I want you to contrast this. Two different scenarios. One scenario where there's two guys who are throwing punches at one another like a bar fight. I think we'd all agree you can't kill someone.
What the fuck? Yes, you can. You can absolutely kill somebody. Holy shit. What? Watch the guy, knock him down, he dies.
The only difference is the defendant brought a gun.
Get
He brought his
out of
AR-15.
here. That actually makes me angry to even hear him say that.
Theory that Joseph Rosenbaum was not only going to take the gun,
Fucking
but take it
seriously.
and then turn it on the defendant. And the defendant actually told you that he thought Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and not only kill him, but kill other people, which is really ironic considering the defendant is the one who killed people in this case and the only one.
Oh, it's ironic that the defendant was being attacked by people.
That Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this.
Unbelievable.
You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people.
What? No. How is that even
The
possible?
defendant fired 4 shots at Joseph Rosenbaum.
That's
caused
aggravating.
5 wounds total. The first shot fractured.
First of all, you do not need a gun to threaten my life in any way. In any way.
The second shot went through his left hand, probably ricocheted off the ground and hit his lower left thigh. It's a flesh wound. I'm sure it hurt, but probably not all that serious. The third and fourth shots are as Mr. Rosenbaum has fallen almost completely to the ground. He's parallel to the ground. He is almost face first to the ground. The defendant fires a round into his upper back, which is the kill shot, and another round which grazes his right scalp. At this point, as you saw in that video, a crowd rushes to that body to try and save Joseph Rosenbaum. They're trying to put clothing on the wound to stop the bleeding. They're going to take him across the street to a hospital. KMH, Frederick South, is literally right across the street. And this crowd, except for the defendant, are all focused on trying to save this person's life. A person, by the way, they probably had never even met before. Because that's what most people do. Richie McGinnis testified. I rode with Rosenbaum in the back of that SUV. I told him we'd have a beer together when this was all done. Mr. Rosenbaum was unable to respond. The defendant decided to pull the trigger on his AR-15 4 times. That was his decision. And he is responsible for every bullet that comes out of that gun. He doesn't get a pass by pulling the trigger fast. He could have chosen to stop after the first shot, after the second shot, after the third shot, and assessed whether or not there was still a need to keep firing. But he went 4 times in 0.76 seconds. The defense has made a big...
Okay, so less than 1 second. So ready? Ready? Go. Done. That's it. Go. Done. That's it. Pop, 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 pop. That's it. There was no decision making. There was defense only.
And this is indicative of someone who
Unreal.
doesn't care about the consequences. Doesn't
Get the
care.
fuck outta
to
here.
Stop and figure out, am I good? Do I need to stop? Or I'm just going to keep on going. And as I said, he tracks the body.
Bro, you pull a trigger of a gun pointed at a person, you are not doing it just to be like, all right, someone chasing you, especially to be like, oh, let's see if that was effective and we'll try again. Nope, that's not what's going to happen ever.
Gun. And that a reasonable person in the defendant's position with that AR-15 strapped tightly to his chest would think that Joseph Rosenbaum was even capable of taking that gun away as he's falling to the ground with a fractured right pelvis. And
yeah, okay. Kyle does not know that Rosenbaum has a fractured right pelvis. A, couldn't know that. And B, I'm pretty sure I could get the gun away from you or at least harm you with it.
you have to believe all of those things to justify the murder of Joseph Rosenbaum. That's why the defense is trying so desperately hard to convince you that Joseph Rosenbaum threatened to kill the defendant, which never happened. That's
that you know of. You didn't follow Joseph Rosenbaum the entire evening. Because there were reports that he said he, talked mad shit and said he would kill him.
it is not justified. There is no valid self-defense claim.
What'd you find there, Lucid? Found it?
One of the things the judge has instructed you is that when the defendant provokes this situation, he has to exhaust all reasonable means to avoid killing someone. Did he?
Video.
He didn't have to shoot.
Let me find it here. All right. Let me
He's the one who chose where to run.
figure out how to send this to
He
myself.
chose to run in between those parked cars. He slows down as he gets there. The crowd's already running away. You know, the defense wants to make a point. There's a whole bunch of people over there who are doing stuff to cars, and the defendant had no escape route. The crowd's actually already running away at this point. They've heard the first gunshot from Joshua Zeminski, and they're already starting to scatter. But if you look on the video, there's a huge open space in that lot where the defendant could have circled back around, and he actually does circle back around after killing Rosenbaum.
Come here.
Or he could have gotten away. He has to exhaust all reasonable means of escape before killing Mr. Rosenbaum.
Come here.
Your Honor, I do have some more video I want to play. I'm having a little bit of technical problems that I'd like to work on, so I think this would be a good time to pause, if that's okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen to any account. And we will begin again at it's 1:45 too soon? Did you say 12:45 or 1:45? Oh, well, I thought we'd have it leisurely. No, how about 12:45? Is that a better idea?
For an hour.
Let's do that.
They come back in
Let's
an hour.
talk about the case.
All right, let's see what you sent me over here. This is a poor quality video. That's fine. We can work around that. You know what I mean? Can work around that.
To guard local businesses. Among them was 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse.
So people are getting injured. And our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is also there's somebody hurt. I'm running into harm.
Lifeguard.
That's why I have my right.
Clean graffiti that day.
Rosenbaum was there protesting on behalf of BLM. Joseph Rosenbaum was there protesting on behalf of BLM. Apparently, he was committing arson. What happened next between the two of them
Could be
is
audio.
irrelevant, but if you want to understand how Joseph Rosenbaum died that night, it's important to see it. Here it is.
Joseph Rosenbaum is seen starting more fires. Around that same time, Kyle Rittenhouse is spotted running with a fire extinguisher.
What a good person. And all
With
these
his face
scumbags
concealed, Rosenbaum emerges,
trying to
chasing
kill
after
him.
Rittenhouse.
Trying to kill Kyle.
A single gunshot is fired by a protester.
Don't extinguish my fires.
Alexander Blaine.
So
From
he
this
got shot?
angle, we see the muzzle flash of Blaine's handgun. Seconds later, Kyle Rittenhouse is pinned between parked cars. Directly in front of Rittenhouse, armed with bats and other weapons, a mob is forming a barricade.
BLM scumbags.
With no way out
Trying
and
to
no way
stop
to know
Kyle.
who fired that shot, Rittenhouse turns to face Rosenbaum.
From setting
Kyle
out
Rittenhouse
fires.
fired 4 shots. Seconds later, 3 additional shots are fired by an unknown shooter. One bullet grazed Joseph Rosenbaum's head. Another
To restate what we know, Kyle Rittenhouse fired 4 shots initially that night. Another 4 were fired. We still don't know who fired them all. No one else has been arrested or charged. At this point, the mob turns on Kyle Rittenhouse. They assault him. It's clear they plan to kill him. Kyle Rittenhouse runs. They follow. Rittenhouse trips and falls. They attack him. He shoots. It's all on video. Watch.
Yeah, I mean that's so this is kind of to my point with Rosenbaum when the prosecutor wants to go through all the what ifs, right? All the what ifs. What if Kyle tripped? Let me tell you something. Right here, where he trips and falls,
strikes Rittenhouse in the head,
pow.
knocking his hat off.
Okay, and then
Rittenhouse trips and falls to the ground. Another
Boom.
protester attempts to jump on Rittenhouse, who then fires 2 shots into the air. With blunt force, another protester strikes Rittenhouse in the back of the head with the sharp edge of a skateboard.
Could have killed him.
Reaches for the rifle.
For sure.
Rittenhouse fires a single shot.
One shot, fired 1 shot at that guy, but did not have time to aim. He just pulled the trigger. Now, let's just play the prosecution side of things. What if he had tripped and fell in between those cars? What would Rosenbaum have done? We cannot know. What if he never tripped right here? Those 2 guys would probably still be alive. He would have never shot them, right? If he just would have ran away.
Striking the man in the chest.
So the what ifs is the problem. We can't go on a whole bunch of what ifs. We can only go what actually happened.
A third protester fakes as if he's surrendering, then suddenly
Right there, bam, pulls a gun.
advances with a handgun aimed at Rittenhouse. A single shot strikes the man's right bicep. Aimed at Rittenhouse.
That guy clearly self-defense against Gage. There's no way. You can't argue that in the least bit. You just can't. It's not doable. If anyone wants to talk with me about this, I can put up my Zoom thing or something. We can send you an invite and we can have a conversation about it. Because I'm just talking to myself, reading your comments. But that is why this prosecutor irks me so much, because you can't just have an entire case based on what ifs. You can only go based on what happened. What actually happened. And I would say if he wanted to kill him, he would have went after him. He would have shot him. He would have shot both those guys again. Why let that dude sit there bleed out with a handgun in his hand? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all, in the least bit. Oh, wow. That's fitting. Weird. So right now we're on recess. There's not going to be anything interesting happening. Pinduo Duo could do something special for me today. That'd be great. Just rock it up to like $97. That'd be amazing. If you are watching the stock market, Luminar is up for no good reason. Pinterest had a decent day. It's still way down. The AMC apes are probably out there rejoicing that they've moved back into the same zone they've been at forever. Ever. Look at that. Oh, it's going nowhere. Boeing had a hell of a day. Looks like it's taken a little bit, but up 5% on Boeing is huge. No lie about that. Snap had a good run up based on news of incorporating some Sony Music copyrighted material into their platform. Tilray, GoPro having a decent little run here. Square ran up pretty well. And then I had a little pullback, but I could see Square continuing to run on the daily. Right here. I mean, decent pullback off of Square. SoFi Technologies was up. A lot of these stocks spiked this morning and then continued just to fall. Oracle looks to be climbing. Oracle would be a good call option to play if you've got some money you want to throw into it. 23andMe's tanking. Mara's tanking. Come on back, buddy. Yeah, we got like an hour to kill, so I might even pause this and go and record some other stuff just because it's going to be kind of boring for a little bit. What do you got there? LEV, not doing anything special. Wish sucks. Bitcoin miners are down big time. Shopify did not have that big of a pullback for as much as much of a run as it had on Friday. I would have expected maybe more of a pullback than that. But is where it's at. Cost is down. Dave & Buster's trading sideways. Look at that spike to $40 pre-market. Pretty nice. Facebook had a decent little push and then just consolidated. That's where we're at with this right now. Not a whole heck of a lot. We are in recess. So that's what you got. We're going to have to come back to this trial. See if there's anything else that is happening. I didn't see anything news related that was of interest, being honest, but I do need to let the dog out. It's been a while since the dog's been outside, so let's find something entertaining to put on. Or a recap of something, maybe. Trying to find something of interest that we can play in the meantime. I don't see a whole lot here that's of interest to me. Steven Crowder is on.
And he
Maybe we
said
can
the
put up
same thing.
Crowder.
He's like, it's Monroe to Toledo, if that.
Right.
You know, it doesn't. It's absurd.
Yeah, they want to make it seem like he was. And it shouldn't matter. They don't believe in borders, so who cares?
Right. All of a sudden now it's really important borderline.
Oh, that's right. That makes sense. They want to divide us internally, and they just want to make sure we have no external borders. It's almost like it's part of some, I don't know, some great something.
Yeah.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
I love that.
Yeah, I've got a few questions.
Okay.
But also, what was it? Garrett's Michael Jackson video game is surprisingly accurate. His description, it's kind of, if you want to see it, it's pretty crazy.
Well, okay, what am I going to look at?
It's gameplay of the game. It's called
gameplay.
It's called Moonwalker.
Moonwalker,
And,
that's right. That's
like saving kids, all that stuff. It's pretty.
Wow.
Yeah.
I told.
Let me see this.
Don't
Let me see
question.
Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. All right.
The street level, I told
that a
you.
kid on his shoulder?
No, that's the chimp.
Oh, it's Bubbles. Okay.
Dude, I remember this. I forgot this existed.
I done told y'all.
But I got a point where there's.
You'll never catch me. Is that a 6-year-old?
Yeah, if it's a grown man, he's not
Stepping
chasing
on the
for a
kid.
reason.
Sparkles. Sparkles. Look at it, spin it. Woo! Come on.
It's the greatest
Wow.
game I've ever seen.
Wow.
Amazing.
There's one more spot that's pretty good
thank
too,
you.
actually.
What's the final boss? A DNA sample?
No, it's,
All right.
Look at he kicks it.
yeah, the very last thing
Oh,
you
it's a
win.
kid.
it
Oh,
is.
no, it's a kid.
Oh, you in blueprints for a Ferris wheel?
What is he throwing?
Sparkles, man. It's
Oh,
Sparkles.
Another kid.
Michael!
I don't want
He's
there
going
to
through this
be-
house, finding children that are hiding in
Yes,
closets.
he's going through his own house. This was a cry for help.
He found a lady and he was like, nope.
Yeah, no, screw that lady.
It's just a bunch
Just
of.
lights are on fire.
It just looks like a bunch of FBI agents trying to help
Stop
people he
him.
has captured.
Stop catching the kids.
And the sprinkles are basically Don Lemon
Yeah.
throwing his taint juice at them.
And it's like, where are you going? Get back here! I got magic dust. I don't want. Oh no!
Sparkles.
I don't want there to be guns. I want to have magic dust.
Magic dust.
The goal of that game is to get the kids back into the rooms before those grown men in suits can get you. It's the greatest game.
How did we not see this?
Oh my goodness.
It's HBO.
Gary, you need to pick out every video game for me.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that existed.
Beautiful.
It is just that is a cry for help.
I certainly did
That's
not
almost
get
like
the irony.
that's almost like when the Riddler starts leaving clues because he wants to be caught.
Yes.
Yeah.
I bet you never saw what I do in my own time.
Yeah.
We have a video game to introduce into evidence, Your Honor.
It couldn't be more incriminating if Michael Jackson sent a ransom note with cutout letters
Yeah.
from magazines. Like, I raped all the kids.
Yeah.
Well, Michael,
There you go.
you know the way we know this is your magazine. When you clip this letter out, you kept your address and name.
Yeah.
on the- yeah.
You put your
did.
return address.
Yeah. It's that bottom left corner that always gets you. Yeah.
What if it was lost in the mail?
I don't know how to buy stamps.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Also, you when you mailed it, you also mailed the Mad Fold-In, which this issue was Corey Haim, but it's stuck.
Now, if my kids could just wear eyes wide shut masks, that won't be weird at all.
I call it a costume party, ballroom party,
Every day.
but everyone has to drink the punch.
Oh, somebody's at the door because I heard a series of bells that lead to my bedroom, and that's not weird at all.
The only way parents can get here and the sensors not go off is if they go through the lasers, like Catherine Zeta-Jones in Entrapment. That was gross. She's disgusting.
Oh, this Paris hotel's all booked up, but I got your parents a nice room in Ireland.
That Northern Ireland.
Oh. They're going to die.
There's some nice people. Nice people can take care of your parents. Ira.
I better slow down. You got a moonwalk on stage tomorrow.
Don't forget your Pepsi commercial.
Sparkles.
Wasn't he hosting like a fake Pepsi commercial or something? I don't remember what it
No,
was.
he's hair lit on fire. I think it was a Diet Coke commercial, right?
Was it Pepsi or was it Diet
I
Coke?
don't remember. It might have been Pepsi. Yeah. It may
I
have
want to
been.
say it's Pepsi.
Yeah, it was when he had the kind of the Jerry curl in the 80s.
Yeah. And it just
that stuff is flammable.
Yeah, I mean, he might as well.
Is there footage of that?
Yeah. Well, that's where.
He should have just been wearing like an asbestos toupee. That thing's just gonna go up.
Want to see his hair?
That
on
is
fire.
actually what Little Richard wore.
For many years.
Yeah.
They say that's what turned him gay.
Yes. It just
That
burned.
very
It
day.
singed the straight part of his brain.
Insulation wig.
Never gonna. Yeah.
Oh.
Insulation wig.
And in no way do we believe that, you two, or think that it was his choice.
Of course not, whatsoever.
No, he was born
in
that
any
way.
scenario. It's
He
just
sang Tutti Frutti, and nobody caught on.
Tutti Frutti. Oh, Rudy. Yes. Quick question, Your Honor. Who's Rudy?
And what is Tutti Frutti on
Yeah,
Rudy?
what is
like you're doing?
Well,
help me understand.
Tutti Frutti is what I prefer, and Rudy is a terrible film.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to some questions about because I don't know what questions to answer. This is all
speechless.
This all seems pretty cut and dry.
I want to hear what people think
Okay,
so
let's
far
go.
of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So Wyatt Duke wants to know, what do you think is the most damning evidence against Kyle? Love the show in Mug Club.
Tone it down. Stop yelling.
Well, I think it's. I don't know. I'm guessing if the most. Well, I can't say most damning evidence, but the worst thing that could happen to Kyle is if someone comes in and sprinkles dust on the jury and asks them to think happy things, and they never come back.
I'm trying to think of the worst thing.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that seems to be about all.
I have it. He's white.
That's true.
Definitely the most damning evidence that they are going to present is that he's white.
It's
and
called
that,
the reverse.
Actually, he's Hispanic.
Is he?
Yeah.
He doesn't
Rittenhouse
look
is
it.
Hispanic?
He's half Hispanic. Apparently.
Doesn't.
His
What
dad-
is?
does
But
not look
so between him and Zimmerman, what is with these white Hispanics?
Yeah, I
don't
can't. I
really
can't
know.
I don't know that.
I mean,
half of
that's the only thing
community.
I can see. That's the only thing that I can
only
see.
speak for myself.
Yeah, only the black mixed community.
Yeah, there's really no evidence against him, honestly.
No, and so even
Well, I was going to say the only thing that I thought they could make stick was the gun charge, and that's gone.
right,
And it's gone.
gone now.
That's just that's a really good sign.
Well, they're also
Yeah.
lying about the order of events on the first part, right?
Yeah.
With Rosenbaum,
Right.
They know that they can't touch the next part, right? Because this is where he's defending his life clearly with people who are armed, right?
Well,
One with a
I don't know.
skateboard.
I think he's going to touch it.
No.
I think he's going to reach out and Rosenbaum it because he's
going to try.
Yeah, he's going to because he tried to say you only shot him for kicking you with one foot. So
He
they
tried to
actually think this is a compelling argument because the left believes you have no right to self-defense.
Right.
They believe you have the right to protect yourself if the right people in positions of authority in government grant that right. That's a fundamental difference. Hey, I ask again, who is the militia? According to the Constitution, let's just be really clear about that. That's something, and it's been affirmed by the Supreme Court. It's well documented. It's been affirmed by all of the auxiliary documents, the supporting documents that you can read from the founding fathers. They're very, very clear. There's a reason militia, comma, necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. If they wanted only some term like the militia, meaning something separate from the people, they would have clarified that. They would have said the right to the militia to keep and bear arms.
Right.
They didn't. They said a militia being necessary, and then they supported it when people were asked.
Yeah.
They thought it was so absurd, like, well, who's the militia? They're like, well, everyone's a militia.
Take that guy and send him on a boat.
How do you create a militia unless everyone has guns? What?
I mean, who's got the gun?
Otherwise, you're just talking about a military at that point. That's not a militia.
No,
you
can't ask for the guns.
No,
it's too late at that point.
No, exactly.
Well, so here's
got to timeline this, folks.
I mean, if you need the guns and you don't have the guns, I mean, you're kind of screwed.
Well, we thought it was only for the Air Force and Navy until you see how it affects real folks.
By the way, that was his argument. That was a prosecutor's argument. He's like, you didn't need that gun. Like, why'd you take a gun with you to the riots and protests and the things where things burned and people got assaulted and guns were fired? Why would you take a gun? You don't need it.
Well, I don't know. I take a gun with me always.
Yeah. Well, he said I was attacked. He goes, well, yeah, but still, why'd you have it?
I do love that he's pushing that where it's like, well, I was worried that they were going to try to hurt me, and then they did.
Yeah. I almost at this point want to sell. I think it would be a good idea for so that there are no future 9 to 11-year-old victims like the 5 kids he raped. Guns that look like Nerf guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they did.
Yeah, just so they could shoot pedophiles.
They did. They made a gun that looked like.
I mean, I know you'd have to put it in a lockbox, whatever, but
yes, of course.
I just think I'm not afraid. I don't care who this offends. Okay, I'll just be clear. Because I know I'm going to get a lot of flack. I don't like child rapists.
Listen,
look. Wow. I don't care who it. Look,
don't say that while I'm sitting on your show.
And
we're all gonna have to fall for this.
By the way, if you
speaking
guys are,
of fall, did you see him fall before he died and burned in hell?
Yeah,
Michael
He almost
Jackson
went
yes,
straight there.
Yes, of course.
Yes, Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Welcome to pedophile hell. There's no boys here, otherwise it's
no.
It's just me and you. It's pretty much just Earth without children.
All we have are Sports Illustrated models.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, look.
And when you open up,
There's Kate Upton standing ooh, for all eternity. Ooh.
There's copies of Boy's Life, but when you open it, it's Playboys.
I'm gonna get sick.
I just threw up on the inside like one.
But then you also have short-term memory, so you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
You just forget that you did it. Oh, look, there's oh no.
I want to look at old pictures of Opie Ron Howard when he was Kathy Ireland.
Now, Rosenbaum, picture your favorite thing. I know you can, and your wiener's going. It's hell.
I don't think he had it.
Pedophile hell.
All the booties are sewed shut.
Oh, no.
Every now and then you think you see a 9-year-old boy, but it's just Satan doing one of his mirages.
Yeah. It turns around and it's a beautiful woman.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making me think that there was a 9-year-old in my bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, really.
I know. By the way, just for everybody out there right now, they are on a break. If you're watching us, don't go anywhere. They're on a 40. They're on a break. 45-minute break. We're still watching. Nothing's going on yet. When they come back,
You think I want to be here?
They're having some Asian food.
They're having some Asian food.
They're waiting on it from that boat in the harbor.
Waiting for the boat in the harbor.
Yeah. So
listen, we didn't want to have any more fiascos with the Asian food, so
true.
We got some of that beaner food.
Some of that bat soup wasn't sitting too well.
I hope none of those foods are chips, and they're on the boat in that harbor. Did I do it again?
I don't know.
Salsa.
I don't know. Boat in the Rio Grande. They have boats.
Yeah, hopefully they're not sneaking it over the border.
I don't know.
Hello?
I'm hoping that they coyote our food here fast.
Something, because I'm hungry. I got to tell you, I looked at Cookie Man.
I don't know. Is our food? Is our Latino food being put in the back of a turtle by the cartel?
Is that what it is?
Slow and steady may win the race, but I'm hungry now.
Getting its heads and hands sewed off and then hung over an overpass?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Rough.
I don't know.
Home.
You know what? I guess I should just get American fusion from now on.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree. A nice block of cheddar.
Nice block of cheddar. Maybe have one of them burgers.
Yeah.
A hot dog.
But not one of them burgers from Burger King, because that sticks on your fingers for all time. Like later after, you still smell it like it's going, remember me? For the whole day.
Like Don Lemon.
Yeah,
I mean.
That's the problem is, with Don Lemon, that's what, what they called him? They called him double Don with cheese.
They did.
Yeah.
There's the Dairy Queen and the Burger King, but I got to tell you, the food don't taste too royal.
No, it don't taste that royal. I don't think the royal family has ever sampled their menu.
No,
I'll take the Don Lemon with extra sauce, please.
There you go. I'll take the Don Lemon with, which is, that's just where the server, he just grabs his bowels and jams them in your face. Which I didn't know, but it's policy over there.
Wow, yeah.
Can I get you something? He says, can I get you something off the wine list? And he just grabs his cake.
Yeah.
Heavens.
But we're all different. Turns out that's just how he says, I love you. That's how he says he cares. Put that on a Hallmark card. Just a smear of Don Lemon's taint juice.
Oh, this is painful.
Yes. All right. Let's go to some chat. Any other questions about this?